My fellow Ambalanders, it's been a long time since I communicated to you people directly, and it's my honor to speak to you people today. And I thank God that we are all blessed to still be alive in our liberation struggle. I honor those who have lost their lives, and my best wishes and condolences to the families. It's hard in times of peace to lose loved ones, but it's even harder in times of war. I honor Boss Spirit, who was killed in Bamenda a few weeks ago, and others who have laid their lives in the defense of our independence. I also want to thank our population, the 8 million strong Amazonians who have persevered for so long in the face of difficulties, personally, as families and individuals, and collectively as a people. I also want to thank, a moment, my phone seems to be ringing.
Welcome to Bixby. You can talk to me anytime by saying hi, Bixby.
All right, my apologies for that. I really want to appreciate our people for their resilience, their commitment to the independence of our country, and for defending every block in whatever way, shape, or form. The past 5 years has been harrowing, extremely very difficult, coupled with the difficulties imposed deliberately by the enemy across the Mongo, who has taught that economic deprivation, torture, systematic impunity, and the deprivation of liberty will convert Amazonians into being Cameroonians. The political exclusion of our people from the body politics of the country, social asphyxiation, and all the schisms that have been imposed on Amazonia to turn us into Cameroonians. The lack of health infrastructures, lack of economic opportunities, lack of good quality educations that can be rewarded with employment opportunities. It has been hell for our people. Even those who have gone to school have realized that they have just been forced to be stuck in a four-wall room without the possibility of studying what is relevant for their own survival within the context of their own economic realities. And despite all of these things, despite the fact that we were forced through historical revisionism to believe to be more Cameroonians than Amazonians, despite the fact that we were forced on 11th of February, 20th of May to sing their anthem, march and honor their flag. It has taken a very short period of time for Amazonians to realize their Amazonianness and realize the deceit that has been imposed on us through violence by an illegal occupier. The past 5 years has shown our determination to be free, even in the face of uncertainty. The last 5 years have shown our collective effort as a people, to be free as one. I speak today on Country Sunday, the day that we all as a people determined to end the impunity of Cameroon, observe ghost towns in honor of those who have died, in remembrance of their memory, thanking their families, to send a powerful message to all those whose liberties have been taken away from them, that you are not in jail alone, that the reasons for which you were kidnapped and deported to Yaoundé or to Douala will not die. We send a powerful message to our soldiers fighting in their different blocks that we are all together in this. That while you carry the gun, we have an instrument, a powerful one, collective one. Every Monday, we also send a message to the international community. There will be no 1961. There will be no vote to hell or vote to Golgotha. There will be Ambazonia, independent, with sovereignty resting in the people, with our people having the right in the land of their birth to determine the kind of economic and political systems that they will want to have, and to harvest their potentials in terms of human and natural resources for their own interests and for the good of all those who mean them good. We do not simply fight for an abstract political independence. We fight to establish a system within which we can institute an educational system that takes our kids from our homes, educate them within the context of their own social, political, and economic realities to survive within those environments and to be better citizens. We want to build an economic system that is not only for the powerful, where you don't simply die because you lack monies to buy Nivaquine for malaria, where you are not denied access to health infrastructures because you don't have money, where you don't simply live under the rain because you don't have the funds to build a roof over your house, that you don't live in squalor because your forebears weren't opportune to have established something better for you. We want to build a system where no one is ostracized because of the kind of jobs that they do. As I've said before, that the beauty industry in the world is one of the most powerful industries with billions of dollars, and that you are not stigmatized as a hairdresser because you create beauty, that you cannot simply repair your car in Europe for 20,000 amber, sometimes for 100,000 amber, but we stigmatize the engineers because they are specialized in ensuring that our cars are up to date. You drive a bus out here, you can own a house, you can buy a beautiful car, where we don't simply turn the taxi driver at home, the bus driver at home, and treat them with contempt and disrespect. We want to build a society where people are respected because they produce value. They can find jobs, where they can turn cassava into gari and export it in the next supermarkets somewhere far in Europe, where they can turn corn and preserve it, where you can harvest vegetable and export it, where you can have a sunflower, the tulip plant, and market it and earn a decent living and be respected within the community. That's the kind of society we want to build, where you can live in Bamenda and drive and walk in Victoria within 1.5 hours, because we build our infrastructure to make sure that it becomes the engine for development. It becomes the engine for opportunities, that people don't simply die on our highways because they are abandoned by an occupying regime, and where the bounties of our soil give us the opportunity to build the biggest, longest boulevard on every backyard in Ambazonia. We fight to establish an economic system where if you don't work, you can receive unemployment benefits, where if you are going to school, you can have training in one of the highest tech industries, because that experience you gain through education will give you the opportunity to land the best job, not only in Ambazonia, but outside. We want to create a productive economy where we can invite foreign investors to come in, because we already have the cream of men and women who are trained by an educational system that does not discriminate for them to get the jobs that are far away from home. In the world of cyber opportunities, you can sit down there in Mutengene and do a job for someone in New York. You can sit there in Kwakwa and be able to create value somewhere in Afghanistan. That's why we fight. And only an independent Amazonia with its own government, its own institutions, designed in such a way that it can guarantee for us and the next generation these opportunities is the solution. And I thank you all for your perseverance. I thank you all for taking the crap that we give you all the time, and that even in the face of perceived and constructed, schisms perpetuated by people who thought they were entitled to power, you have remained doggedly resilient. You've believed in the strategy. You've believed in the rejection of the tokenism that Cameroon constantly dishes out to you in terms of opportunities. You've rejected them. You've banded them into armor cars, which are brave fighters are blowing up in every corner. And you must continue to fight and defend Ambazonia until the last remnants of their forces are kicked out of our country. There will be no surrender. There will be no opportunity again for Cameroon to legitimize its political institutions in Ambazonia. The strategy we designed from the beginning was designed to delegitimize Cameroon, because we said political occupation is predicated on political legitimization of the institutions of the occupier. Delegitimize it by kicking out the DOs, their mayors, their governors, their senators. You did so. We also know occupation is predicated on economic exploitation and extortion. You shut down the economy for them. And I encourage you to continue to trade with Biafra. Reject Cameroon wholeheartedly. This is a country that has imposed a lot of pain on our people. And we will never have any day again to coexist with brutal rapists who have kidnapped our people and renditioned them into their own prisons. My fellow Ambazonians, it has been a difficult journey. No journey to freedom, no journey for justice has been easy. In every country whose people have stood up to fight for something more noble than what they have lived in, have gone through the same tribulations. Jesus Christ, who intercedes for us, was murdered by those whom he came to save. And so we must expect that it will happen to us. But remember, as I have said, those who plotted, schemed, and murdered Patrice Lumumba thought they were killing Lumumba. They killed the dreams of millions of Congolese, and more than 60 years later, they are still wallowing in misery. Those who murdered Thomas Sankara thought, they were killing the man. They were holding an idea and an ideal which would have saved Burkina Faso. Those who murdered the Martin Luther King, the Malcolm X, and all those freedom fighters, nationalist patriots who stood for something more noble than themselves, did disservice to millions of people. And it's important for us to understand that those who perpetuate, those who preach hate, those who call for the assassination of soldiers, those who want our society to be divided between A and B, are doing no good to Ambazonia. We will have differences. Differences are natural in every family, in every society. It is not how we perpetuate those differences that make us better people. It is how we understand these differences and take steps to ensure that despite our differences, we can still work together, we can fight together, and we can be free as one people. My fellow Ambazonians, as I have said severally, Cameroon is a stubborn nation. It's a stubborn country. It believes in the use of force. It believes in violence in achieving political objectives. It's ruled by a group of old men who have engaged in massive corruption to enrich themselves. And Cameroonians themselves have been unable to overthrow an existing political system that has put them in shame. Their own nationalists the NS1G, the Omunyobe were murdered, and the country was handed over to the Ijos and Paul Biya, who looted the treasury and laid waste, to the coast of Cameroon. This is what we are facing. And we are not, as we have said repeatedly, against diplomacy. Diplomacy is a natural tendency for belligerents to be able to use to find an understanding of intricate issues. But when you are dealing with a country that has shown itself for 60 years to murder students because they ask for universities, to kidnap lawyers because they ask for the reformation of a legal system, to dump teachers in jail because they want an educational system where their kids can learn in English, you understand on the big issues there will be no compromise from such a regime. And there is no wisdom in leadership in showing weakness in the face of all the evidence that is in front of us. For 60 years, they used diplomacy to manipulate the frontiers and the Endelis. And while one was fighting for Yaoundé, one was fighting for Abuja. No one had, the wisdom to look beyond themselves and say, this is what is good for us. Today we stand at the precipice, at the junction of opportunity, to stand firm as one people to end the tyranny of Cameroon, or to buckle in the face of scams that are being paraded time and again from foreign capitals to make us fall in the same trap that our forebears fell into in the 1960s. When Cameroon will be ready, they will commit. We said from the beginning, when they call us 2 cubes of sugar, that when they will understand that we are not Cameroonians, when they will begin to discuss the possibility of the survival of their own state, because the very survival of Cameroon depends on the independence of Ambazonia. You've started listening to them having discussions. It's not for Ambazonia. It's about the survival of their own state. They have never been for you. They've treated you with contempt and disdain. Salute the bravery of a few of them who've spoken out early on. Cameroonians have begun to speak, but it's not for you. It's about the survival of their own country. Don't be tempted. It is time for you to increase the pressure. It's increase the funding of our forces. The assault on the last remnants of Cameroon's institutions in our country. It is time for us to increase our speed. Anytime you are on your race and you see the finish line right ahead of you, it is not time to begin to celebrate, because competitors will be going faster. It is time to speed up and reach the finish line. There are 2 ways to end this hostility. It all depends on Cameroon. Commit to meaningful negotiations supervised by a multilateral international system, and present your surrender letter. Apologize for the murders you've caused, the pain you've imposed, and accept to pay reparations for all the thuggery and looting of our country. Or we will defeat you in battle and impose those conditions unilaterally. The choice is in the hands of Yaoundé. As for us, we have nothing to lose. We're born in misery, inherited misery. Most of us will die in misery. But we want to ensure that before we go, we leave behind something better than was given us. My fellow people, in the last days, you've been able to read the report of the United Nations, of the World Bank and IMF, about the political configurations of our struggle. I wrote the other day, the greatest achievement of my leadership and that of the Ambazonian Governing Council has been able to make self-defense a currency acceptable across the board. That everyone, those who rejected it, those who nicodemously walk into it, have come to realize that the right to self-defense against a brutal occupier remains the only way we can protect our lives, our people, and our land. We have been able, through our sustenance, despite the attacks, the blackmail, to be able to institutionalize independence as an outcome on everyone. There were those who think you could reform the colonial state. There were those who think you could coexist in a federalism which they abrogated, which first they imposed. We stood firm that there will be no coexistence with a system that has drunk our blood for 60 years, looted our resources to build a large army which it has sent into in our land to kill us. We will be free like every other people, and our people will be able to make their own decision on political and economic unions that benefit our people. And that first there will be decolonization of our land and the expulsion of the enemy. The Amazonian Governing Council stance has been unwavering. One of the things we have also done is to deny Cameroon the domestic claim to adjudicate the outcome of this conflict. Cameroon has known from the beginning, the day it surrenders its perceived right of sovereignty over Amazonia to an international jurisdiction, its claim over Amazonia is over. And when we talked about the internationalization of our struggle, when we talked about international contenderhood, we were clear that for 60 years, whether it has been the GCA board, formation of political parties, its grand débat, large débat, elections, Cameroon has been unable, incapable, and unwilling to be a fair party. It has stolen every election. It has manipulated any discussion for the interest of one man, Mr. Biya, and his arm of bandits. That only an international system, and we are not talking the kind of international system being proposed by Switzerland. That is a replication of Cameroon, because as we have said, Switzerland is the banker of Cameroon. Switzerland is an economic party. It's not a neutral party. And we have believed that only a group of countries, like you had in the case of Sudan, where you had, I think, 3 countries, the Norwegians, the Americans, and the Brits, being able to facilitate discussions and being able to use muscles on Sudan. Without the muscles of the United States, the threat in terms of Omar al-Bashir being indicted, sometimes those decisions are made to put pressure on the center of power that is recalcitrant. And so we need a multilateral international system put together, sanctioned by the UN General Assembly resolution, giving these countries the mandate to oversee negotiations between Cameroon and Amazonia. We have been able to achieve that. But we can't sit on our laurels and take pride in that. We must work harder. We must fight harder. And I thank all those other groups that have been doing their utmost best. My fellow countrymen and women, Amazonia is free. Territorial liberation begins with mental freedom. You've achieved mental liberation. That is the most important thing. You now believe you are Amazonians. You now believe in a free country. You now believe that the lies that have been used to impose occupation on you were manipulation. You now know the colors of your flag. You now sing your anthem. Take courage, sacrifice, and take over control of the land and put in place a system of government that will serve your interests. To our brave fighters on the ground, you have taken upon yourself in every block across the territory to fight without pay, to die and be buried with honor, with the flag, with the anthem. We will never be able to pay you back. But there is one promise we make. For all those who have died, we will engrave your names on the biggest tombstones in Ambazonia, so the next 30 generations will remember the sacrifices you made. For all those who have been wounded, the Ambazonian state will take care of you for the rest of your life. For all families that have given their sons and daughters, the Ambazonian state will look after you. Your sacrifices have not been in vain. Let us double our effort. Let us be determined in the face of the infiltration, in the face of enablers. We have stood firm to redefine the contours of Ambazonian nationalism. And we have exported our determination across our borders to other peoples who are rising up to demand a redefinition of the concept of statehood within the continent of Africa. A concept hijacked by a few, answerable to foreign multinationals that have raped our continent, tortured our people, brutalized them, harvested their resources and built big armies that they have used to murder them. We must, as a generation, redefine the 1648 Westphalian notion of statehood and build truly independent political and economic states that can take care of its people, that will be for the best interest of humanity. Our generation has gone through a lot of pain, and we have accepted the responsibility to end the tyranny and punishment deliberately imposed by illicit intercourse between overseeing managers calling themselves presidents and foreign multinationals. It is a time for a new Africa, within which an independent Ambazonia is going to have partners that it can mutually trade with, that our people can visit other countries and come back home, that our people will not wallow in political exile in Western capitals because their own countries have been robbed from them by armed robbers. My fellow countrymen and women, last time I talked about a town hall meeting that called for the attack on my press secretary, Mr. Asu Lucas, and the Deputy Defense Chief, Mr. Capo Daniel. It's very shameful, extremely very shameful, that people we have defended, people we have stood with, will contemplate to refer, as they have been doing, our finest men to the authorities of foreign countries. The Ambazonian Governing Council will not forgive you. I also have been briefed by my press secretary on a statement I made concerning the CDN, that the representative of the CDN within that town hall didn't speak for the CDN. I extend my apologies to the CDN and I withdraw my statement. But the Ambazonian Governing Council will remain firm, anchored in truth, justice, the right of our people to exist. We will not blink in the face of internal attacks, sabotage. Finally, the World Bank and IMF report has truly spoken for us. It has been able to expose those who stand for Cameroon and those who defend your interests. I wish you all the best. God bless Ambazonia.
Hail this land of glory, we the Amazonian, special loyalty, presence to our Savior who brought the to the hero who bore the lonely diablo. Glory to glory, we rise and never to fall. Here in a nation, flowing rivers and holy. Glory, glory, glory to the Father for making you a nation, a joy forevermore. Ambazonia, land of freedom, you shall live in plenty, meet in our need. And your children shall be like the stars above. The Most High God being the watchman of this nation. Ambazonia, land of freedom, you shall live in plenty, meet in our need. And your children shall be like the stars above. The Most High God being the watchman of this nation.
This has been a live address by the leader of the Ambazonia War of Independence. Thanks for staying with ACN, the Liberation TV of Ambazonia. Welcome to ACN. The Liberation TV of Ambazonia.